friends, to episode number 27 of Wampa Radio. All three of us clown shoes are back in action. We've packed into the circus, and that's where we shall live. This is a show about Star Wars Unlimited, the card game, but you know us, we going deep. We going dig into the nastiness, and the band's back together. So that's where we stand today.
That's right. We missed you last week, Charmer.
Whoa,
of course we're going to
speak for yourself.
We don't need to start with
Speak
lies.
for yourself.
What? Oh no, I missed your insight and pithy banter.
We've been missing it for 27 episodes, actually. The insight part, for sure.
Oh wow,
Absolutely. Listen, there's a reason that Flake is wearing the hoodie.
That one.
He's embracing his full Sith Lord. Now that I'm back, he says, "All right, let's do this. I've got the Force lightning ready to go."
I'm a little bit Sith mode this week. It's been a rough week, so we're kind of like Sith lording it up. But yeah, I didn't do my hair. I don't have a hat nearby.
Wow,
it's cold, so I'm. It's funny because like I'll just pull the veil back a little bit here. I have right near me because I live in an old apartment in Toronto, and it's not like they give a crap about tenants or anything here. So the old thing, there's the wind off Lake Ontario kind of blows through, and it kind of gets through the cracks, so it gets cold in here. So I have a ceramic space heater that just kind of literally points directly at me at all times, but it's kind of loud with the fan, so I have to turn it off when we record. Exactly that.
I don't have an equivalent for that. Hold on.
It just goes down. There's just a bunch of people just
garage
blowing heat on Doa's feet. What?
Yeah.
What does that do?
This is my rectangular electronic object that was within reach. So
that works.
So Flake
it keeps me warm because I have to
bodies, and Doa has something that warms his heart. That's what it comes down to.
Okay. See, I don't have.
Well,
that.
I mean, I think I'm a true Norseman in that not that I fight on volcanoes nude, which is a super awesome way to end your movie, by the way. Go see The Northman. But that I have kind of an immunity to cold. I've kind of developed that.
You're more
I was worried because I moved back to Minnesota after not living there for 12 years this year, and it's starting to get cold, like legit cold. And
yeah, good luck.
I'm fine.
Good luck. You're not a fighter. You're more of a nude negotiator, is what I think. You'd be up there on the
naked negotiator.
Yeah,
that sounds like a reality TV show.
Seeking a diplomatic, solution, but in the nude. Like that's how it'd be. Meet me at the top of the volcano. No clothes allowed. We will figure this out. My name is Erik. I'll see you there.
I was picturing something like, Gordon Ramsay's Kitchen Nightmares, but he's nude the whole time. And he just comes into their restaurant. He's like, no clothes, no secrets.
Oh my God,
we're gonna fix this.
The amount of jokes you can say, food-related nudity jokes that we're not gonna go. Darick, I see you. I acknowledge you. I know you have a lot of puns. We're not going there.
This is my emergency pack. We're talking about. It's not actually. Talking about being busy. This is a mystery package that I got from Riot Games today that I haven't even opened because I've been too busy. So I probably have something cool. I don't even know about it. It's right up there with. I don't know if you saw it, Flake, but the Arcane Rising pack we gave out for the Realm Rumble. Somebody opened a cold foil Stormstriders in it.
Get out of town. Are you serious?
I saw that.
They posted it on Twitter. Yes.
Yeah.
The one pack of first edition Arcane Rising,
like a $900 card
we gave away, because I retweeted it. I was like, I held this in my hands and I didn't even know it.
This is literally reminiscent of when I held that alpha pack and there was a cold foil heart in it that the person next to me opened, and I was like, well, that's See, I have always said this. I am luck adjacent. I am always luck adjacent. That has always been my story, because the one time, by the way, the streak is over, by the way. I finally opened a Fable.
What, really?
Yes.
Oh,
however, it was not for me. It was for somebody else. I opened it out of a pack.
Does that count?
No, I don't think so. I guess it doesn't, right?
I don't think it's not for you. If it's not for you, it doesn't count.
No.
It was just somebody else's pack. It wasn't your pack.
But behind me, I have...
He's saving it for the showcase
because I just unplugged my earphones, so I can't hear what you guys are saying. Either way, I got a care package from.
What do we want to say about fake or
fake
or Flake?
I got
really
it.
Quick.
I plugged it in right. I got a care package from the wonderful people at Alpha Clash. So we're all getting goodies. We're all getting fun little things. But we should get to the point of the show because we're just.
Yeah, we're gonna discuss strategy and things and whatever. I deleted that line that I usually read at this point in the show, and I kind of forgot the details of it. So we're gonna talk about the game a lot in depth.
You see, that's where you're wrong. This is why we need the script, because what we're gonna talk about is the Wampa Cave Poll of the Week.
Well, that first.
All right, so the Wampa Cave Poll of the Week, we got there, by the way. Congratulations. I know it's always a scenic route that we take, but this time
it's the most beautiful.
It is, but this one was all just sleeping cows and weird stuff. But the cave poll this week, well, I was trying to...
Canada sounds fascinating.
It is so bad. The drive from Toronto to Montreal is just 350 miles on the same highway, and it's just freaking fields on both sides. It is boring as hell.
So it's like driving through Ohio.
Correct.
Or Minnesota.
Or yeah, it's the same thing.
Or Iowa.
But I was trying to make a creature-related reference so that I can link it back to the poll, which is the cave poll this week, which, again, appears every Sunday-ish. The ish is very highlighted right now, by the way. At Wampa Radio on Twitter. You guys can check it out every Sunday or Monday. You can cast your vote. This week's poll was, what is your favorite Star Wars creature mount? There was the Varactyl, which you guys might know. It's a very... the name of the creature itself was... I don't want to say it wasn't immediately known to me. I had to relook this up, but it is.
Nobody remembered what this was.
Yeah, everybody Googled it, but I guarantee if you Googled it and remember, you'd be like, "Oh my god, yeah, it's probably that." It's the creature that Obi-Wan Kenobi rides when he confronts Grievous and defeats Grievous, which is such a cool thing that unfortunately I think met a very unfortunate demise.
Yeah, it got blasted and fell like really far. I mean, it fell into water, so. It could be alive still, but it's not a main character, so we'll never know.
We'll never know. We will never.
There's probably like an extended universe story about it,
We'll never revisit it. That's basically the end game here. The other one was, for more recency, the Rancor, because that is a mountable creature now.
It always has been. Like the Witches of Dathomir were famous for riding Rancors in the books way back when. Boba Fett infamously destroyed the town that he claimed to protect with a Rancor at the end of Book of Boba Fett. But they had been ridden before.
Yeah, they had been ridden before, but I would have preferred to see Bantha in that slot, personally.
Trust me, we're getting to the part where everybody's mad. That we're going to get to that part because there's no pleasing everybody. The Tauntaun was another one, which I think is more iconic. Like that is
the iconic one.
It is is that not the first mounted creature that we ever see in any Star Wars?
No, you see a dewback in the extended edition.
Banthas, yeah.
And in the and the Banthas, you see sand people riding that. You also do see, I believe, a Ronto puppet with a saddle on it. I'm not 100% sure on that. So there's a lot of evidence of creatures being ridden, although the first time we actually see a creature being ridden is the sand people riding the Banthas.
True.
Yep.
I mean, the special
edition does have a dewback.
That's Jawas too, right? Like I love a good Jawa.
Well, they ride in the Sandcrawler. They don't ride on creatures.
Yeah.
Sometimes they do.
They're more civilized.
When?
In one of the books, I'm like 99% certain.
Oh, well, the special edition also has that one scene where it's super CG. They're driving into town and there's some Jawas riding on a Ronto.
That's why I was saying, like, when I think of the Ronto, that's what I thought about. But
special edition.
That's the one where the swoop comes in, it avoids the Ronto rears, and the Jawa flies off. It's like this little slapstick comedy act, and it's like, it's all right. I get
really enriched my Star Wars experience.
Oh, well, that one leads into there's like that heavy lifting droid that then knocks the little flying probe droid to the ground.
Yep,
like what is this violence between these like characters? I don't get it. Anyway, the last
Mos
one
Eisley is a wild and crazy place.
Damn right it
droids
is.
hitting each other. People almost running into Rontos.
Mos Eisley, scum, a hive of scum and villainy, and apparently like this weird vaudevillian droid comedy act. Finally, the dewback, which, like you said, riding the dewback was something that was injected in there during special edition in 1997, if I'm not mistaken. But I think we mentioned this last week. We talked about the Scout Trooper being something that was more dewback related, like the 1-4 Vigilance unit that had grit and you're like, hey, this seems like more of a Ronto thing, a Dewback thing than it is a Speeder
think
thing.
so.
Yeah, I think so too. But what did you vote for, Charmer?
So I voted for the Dewback because of the ones here, I don't dislike Tauntaun. It's iconic, and I can totally understand why somebody would pick it. But I love the idea of riding what's essentially a giant monitor lizard and on like a hot desert planet. I don't know. It just feels like it's correct. It feels like it fits to me. I was definitely not going to vote for Rancor because even if the idea of riding a Rancor seems cool, even if Witches of Dathomir have done it, Book of Boba Fett has now ruined that for me entirely. Varactyl, I like it, but perhaps it's just because like I love the animated stuff like Clone Wars and Rebels so much. Whenever I think about the Varactyl, I also think of the episode where they're on the snow planet and it's a Narglatch, which is it's like a mount that's wolfish but has kind of like this lion's mane that's blue, and the native people rode it, and I just always thought that one was cool. So like I couldn't vote for the Varactyl. I would say that for the Narglatch, but this is a very long meandering way to say I voted for the lizard because there was that or the Tauntaun were the only acceptable ones in my mind.
I would tend to. I mean, Dewback, I think out of all of these seems like not the least appealing for me, frankly. That's the last one I would vote for, in all honesty.
Really?
Yeah.
It seems like the easiest. I feel like the Dewback would be like the easiest mount to ride out of these four. Like that's the starter one, where it's not very fast. It's pretty wide. It doesn't seem very aggressive. I feel like that's if you're gonna get like a Star Wars mount for a kid, get of a Dewback.
Well, it's
that's why I love it.
It's a space. It's a space camel, right? Like that's what it is. It's just a space camel.
Yeah.
I went for again. Like I wish I had a dog. I absolutely would love to have a dog. I travel too much to justify having one. I'd feel bad just locking it up all the time or having it be a burden to others. Of these four, the one thing like the Varactyl is like a Komodo dragon with a border collie's brain. And that is precisely kind of what I want in life. It won't shed, and it just kind of it's loyal. It can be aggressive. It's clearly agile and smart and very happy. Like that's kind of what I would want. I would absolutely 100% want a Varactyl. Now I would definitely need a lot of space for it, but
yeah.
For me, the Varactyl is like the easy peasy choice because you can ride it. It looks like it loves you, like it enjoys your company.
It liked Obi-Wan at least.
For sure, but who doesn't like Obi-Wan?
Yeah. That's Obi-Wan's probably the most likable Jedi in Star Wars. I mean, Anakin doesn't like him very much.
Oh, that's a good poll. The most likable?
Oh, yeah. Who's the most likable Jedi? Yeah. I mean, that's such a subjective term, though. But, we need cave pole fodder, so maybe we'll bring that back.
Yeah. We need more people to be mad at us. Now, obviously, we missed Bantha on this poll, and we missed...
There's a lot we could put on the poll.
There was.
Yeah.
Somebody...
Yeah. There's the Gungan mount, too, right? It's
There's the Fambas.
Is that what they're called?
Kata,
oh, the Kadus. The Kadus.
Yeah.
Also,
right,
the Kadus is what the Gungan soldiers rode. The Fambas were those big like Brontosaurus things that held the shield generators. There was also the Eopes, which is what Eopes were like. If you remember in Obi-Wan that when he takes the piece of meat and feeds that creature. From his that is an Eope, and he said
that's a space camel.
Yeah, I guess that's a space
that is
camel.
much more space camel. That's true.
That's true.
Mm-hmm. That's the one that farts at Jar Jar Binks in the prequel, and you're like, "What am I doing with my life?"
Yes, because he was just. I
remember that one.
He just wanted a brisky morning munchin, and then he got farted on. But,
no.
But beyond that, there was also the blurgs, which were hilarious in terms of because it's literally just like, hey, let's take a tadpole and give it teeth and just.
It's a head with legs.
That's what it is. And they're like, what do we name this thing? I don't know, something like blurg. Oh, you guys
something
can figure
low
it out.
effort.
For sure. And then they're all at the boardroom, and they're like, so is blurg good for everybody? And they're all like, yep, all right, early night, let's go.
Test groups have demonstrated that they will buy the Blurg toy 53% more than the Blung toy.
The Blung versus the Blurg.
Yeah.
So here are the results, friends. At
You didn't even ask me what I voted
didn't
for.
you? I thought
Rude.
you said Dewback.
No, I said
No,
the Dewback was a good choice, but
He was saying it's the most child friendly, aka
Yeah.
why I love it.
Oh,
that doesn't mean it was my choice.
well,
I just said it was a good choice.
a Rancor is a child-friendly thing.
Well, I mean, if you like watching people be eaten, I suppose some kids are into that. But I chose the Tauntaun. It is the classic, quintessential Star Wars mount. When I was watching the original trilogy as a child, I always felt the most affinity for Hoth because I was growing up in Wisconsin, and so I was like, "Hey, that looks like outside," and I wanted a Tauntaun to ride. And I always kind of felt bad. It did its job. It was a noble beast that gave its life in the line of the rebellion and became a sleeping bag for Luke Skywalker. And I'm like, what a wonderful, glorious animal that Tauntaun is. So many uses, and they do smell bad. Admittedly,
On the inside.
well, no, he said I thought they smelled bad on the outside, which implies they already smelled bad on the outside, but they're even worse on the inside. So there's a bad smell is the indication that we're given there, I think. But I don't care because it's kind of like a bipedal, rideable snow sheep, I guess. And it's cool. It's neat. The stop motion really works in the old movies, for that, and they did a great job with the puppet they put the actors on too. So yeah, Tauntaun's my vote.
It's like if you mix an ostrich with a goat. Like that's what it looks like to me. Like an ostrich goat kind of thing.
Yeah.
Which with 43.5%, Tauntaun won the poll.
Wow.
So 43.5% of you want to ride a snow ostrich. The other 29% want some Rancor action. Good luck with that. Because I think you need to bond with it. You need to connect with it and imprint on it when it's born. So that is a whole process. 15.9% said Dewback. 11.6% don't want a Komodo dragon border collie. What is wrong with everybody? I think that a lot of people just didn't know what a Varacta
Yeah, I think
was.
they didn't know. I didn't know until you reminded me. I was like, what's that? But because it's in such a short amount of the film too, so it doesn't get a lot of screen time compared to some of the other ones. More than the Dewback, I suppose. But yeah, I had to go look it up too.
We could have got Babu Freak riding a Porg. That would have been amazing. Why didn't that happen? Everybody wants to see
Porgs aren't intended to be mounts, right?
Oh my god, I forgot one.
They're intended to be eaten.
Oh.
What?
What about? Yeah, I had an opinion. I wonder if you thought about the exact same one that I did.
Is it Rise of Skywalker?
No, I was thinking of the one from Ahsoka.
Oh, well, those are yes, but I was thinking, there's you're talking about the space whales?
Oh, the wolf things.
No, the wolf thing.
Oh, the wolf thing, the space whales.
It follows. You were talking about having a dog companion, and then my mind naturally went to one, it kind of looks wolfish, but also it did the whole follow you like a sad dog thing, and I immediately fell in love with it.
You guys are ready for this. Do you not recall that final stand at Exegol where they're like, "Hey, we should just use our EMPs to shut them down," but they're not mechanical. They're Orbaks. They're like horses, right? So they rode those in some weird type of cavalry charge because that totally works against guns. And that was another. There's so many mountable creatures. This could have been a 10-thing poll, actually, but again, we are limited.
We're limited by X or Twitter. No one calls it X.
Nobody calls it X.
I still call it Twitter.
Yeah, that's kind of like you're taking a stand against Elon Musk, dude. If I call it Twitter, too bad.
It's the best. It's the best kind of taking a stand because it's the one that requires zero effort, which is the internet's favorite stand as well. If you can just put zero effort into it and say things on social media, that's taking a stand.
Hell yeah.
It's not taking a stand. I just am too lazy to call it X.
So who wants to do headlines this week?
I mean, I watched the stream, and it was
that's the real headline, right?
That was a headline. Yeah, there was a stream with some developer insight, mostly highlighting gameplay, highlighting some new cards that we'll go over in a moment. But it was two games played between the two Fantasy Flight Games developers, Jeremy Zwern and Tyler Parrott. I always want to put a French spin on it at the end.
It might be
maybe
Perot.
It's Parrot. They pronounce it as Parrot.
Ask him. It's Parrot.
I was
okay,
gonna say, I've heard them say Parrot, and so between that and I always
gotta
see
be
his
that.
stuff on Twitter, and I read it as Tyler Parrot. So
there you go. But anyway, they played a couple of games. They played Vigilance Command. So blue-green Chewbacca, who is a Vigilance heroism unit, or leader rather, versus Command Aggression Vader. Vader's a villainy unit, in case you're, and he's aggression. And Chewbacca won that one. According to Tyler, it was kind of a janky Vader build. It was kind of a Vader trooper weenies, it seemed like, and but Chewie beat it. And then the second game was I think the more interesting one. It was double cunning Boba Fett, so double yellow Boba Fett versus aggression cunning Han Solo. So cunning versus cunning a little bit there, and Boba Fett won that. So Jeremy taking both games, and he's a good card game player. Not to say that Tyler isn't. He's a great card game player as well, but it just seems like Jeremy is like he's like the giant brain. It's really just like a huge mind presence that's just inhabiting a body because that's how it moves through this plane, and it couldn't do it otherwise. But it's just been built to play card games and no card games.
If somebody said to me, hey, for Fantasy Flight Games across all of their game types, card games, board games, across all of their intellectual properties, give me your most iconic duo, my answer would be Jeremy Zwern and Winning, because he just keeps doing it.
Yeah, but he keeps doing it right into this stream. So it was cool. But the coolest part about it, I thought, was that we got a bunch of new cards to talk about, which was a lot of fun. It's the next thing we're going to talk about. But aside from that, I think it's worth watching if you want to watch how certain card interactions work, if you want to just see some gameplay, if you want to hear them talk a little bit about their deck building philosophy. There's some definitely interesting stuff in that stream.
Also, you get to see real cards.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Not proxies. That was the highlight for me. They were like, hey, these are the actual real cards. So if you just want to see what real cards look like, then you should watch. Also, they did a quick talk about why there's no flavor text on cards. So if you want that background, that reasoning, you should check out the stream as well.
I better have a damn good reason, because flavor text, I feel like this is a really good game for flavor text, but...
Oh, Star Wars, of course. But
yeah.
Then you got to make room for flavor text.
Yeah. You're not wrong there. I think that it's tough because then you want it for every card. Then you gotta.
Yep.
All right. Let's get to the spoilers. Again, presented not officially by SwooDB, but again, we like to give them props because again, the cards came out like a couple hours ago, and they're like, "Hey, here you go. They're all ready to go." So again, these are spoilers as of the 14th of December. 2023 at about 7:15 p.m. Eastern Time. Anything after this, go take a hike. That's what we're saying.
or wait till next week.
Or wait, or we provide options.
We'll pick the non-Sith Lord answer.
Hey, I'm in my dark mode right now, which I wish SwooDB would have. There we go.
There you go.
My understanding, don't they have one for like they were testing?
I don't know.
I thought
I
I
don't
remember
see one on
seeing
the
something
site right now.
I'm a man of results, not intentions. So
all right,
show me the goods.
Only results.
Yeah, let's go with the first one. This is a new hero, a vigilance and villainy hero, Double V.
Yeah.
And it is Iden Versio. Iden Versio, the Inferno Squad commander, with the action of if an enemy unit was defeated this phase, heal 1 damage from your base. Again, kind of alluding to the fact of blue being restore, like longevity, resilience, just staying power, elongating the game and keeping your stuff alive. It does flip with the epic action of 6, turning into a 4/4 Imperial Trooper. Shielded. That's always nice to see. And again, when an enemy unit is defeated, heal 1 damage from your base. Now, what's fun about this is that this isn't an action. This is just an ambient effect. So if you're out there mowing stuff down, you're getting a lot of that back as health. So initial thoughts on Iden Versio. Charmer, any thoughts on this one?
I really like this leader, even for the non-unit one. Granted, it's an action, and you can only do it, once per turn. So it's going to seem really small or benign, but like the idea that you're almost always mitigating 1 health per turn feels very, very strong to me, especially if you're playing Vigilance already. And then, as you said, once you deploy it, we haven't seen many cards to this effect yet, but if you are running any sort of board sweeper or any effects where you're going to be removing multiple units, then deploying her as a leader and then following it up with, taking out a couple of units and you gain, 2 or 3 health or whatever, can be a very stabilizing swing turn. So I am a big fan of this leader, so much so that it has, prior to this, I was pretty confident I was going to build a double vigilance heroism control deck as my first deck based on cards revealed so far. And I'm now kind of in a 50-50 toss-up between whether it's going to be heroism or villainy because of this leader.
I think if you want to play a slow, grindy, outlast your opponent's style, like this is going to be the leader for you, right? I mean, theoretically, if you're running a lot of removal and stuff like that, which we know Vigilance has access to, you're just fighting on board. You're probably going to be removing units pretty much every turn. And so if you get hit for 2 by one of their smaller, more aggressive things and you heal 1, suddenly their unit is doing half its damage. You can probably extend the game quite a bit with this. You can probably take on aggressive decks with this. This is not my kind of leader. I like to be more aggressive. I like a faster paced game. I like more of a tempo-y game. I think this looks like a very grindy leader, and which is great because there's definitely players out there that really love to play that style. And I think she's going to be very good for that style, but not my leader. Hashtag not my leader, but definitely you need something like this in the game. I think she looks great for that slow, grindy control kind of style.
All right, we got a lot to get through, so
yeah,
we might have to wing through some of the lesser appealing ones, such as the next one. Who wants to do the lesser appealing next one?
I'll do the next one because I don't think it's lesser appealing, but it's just that the words to say are far less. Spec Force Soldier. This is a ground unit that costs 1. The aspects are heroism and aggression. It is a 2/2 rebel trooper. When played, a unit loses sentinel for this phase. So this is a 1-cost 2/2 with a sometimes very relevant on-play effect. And if you're playing aggressive, then getting rid of sentinel is a huge effect. This feels very, very good. There's not much else to say because it just does what you want it to do. But if you're playing like a Sabine aggro deck, this will be in your deck 100%.
Yeah, I think this is one of the best commons I've seen out of the set. Honestly, it's 1 for a 2/2, right, which is great stats for the cost. But on top of that, if you don't get to play it in the early game as just an early threat that your opponent needs to deal with, it essentially becomes a 1-cost event that removes Sentinel, and you get a 2/2 body along with it. It's kind of how you think of it later in the game. So this is, I think, one of those rare, inexpensive cards that is useful at any point in the game if the Sentinel issue presents itself. So I think it's a great card. Like I said, I think it's one of the best commons we've seen.
I like it a lot. Again, thanks to Genders Gaming for revealing this one. What this card does for me, besides, it's a good card, but this essentially cements my premonition that aggression heroism is the premier low to the ground aggro deck. That's what this is. It's a 1-drop 2/2 that negates a potential sentinel. So early game, it's a 2/2. Late game, you can break through some of their more ugly kind of, blockades as they've put them up. So you don't feel bad drawing this if you're playing like a swarmy style trooper deck, like a tribal of just growing up little dudes and having just these like this sea of weenies that just kind of need to bust through. So that's what I think that this is, because the one thing that I think a lot of people need to understand is that this and Magic are different in the sense that if you have like 5 1/1 tokens and your opponent has like a 3/3 up, you're probably going to you could probably attack and still, you'll sacrifice, they'll block one and the rest will punch through. That's not how this works. If you have a big sentinel, you have to go one at a time. You can't circumvent it in any way. So you have to find a way through either Saboteur or this card to negate Sentinel. And I think it's important. This to me is also a card I think that you might hold on when you're like, okay, I'm going to play it, remove your Sentinel, and then kill you. Like, that's kind of the way I foresee this going. This might be a card you even hold on to as like a late game kind of, all right, one resource, and then let's end the game.
Yeah, I think it's a great card. It's funny you mentioned Saboteur, because that is a big part of the next card we're going to take a look at. I'm just going to move on. You said you want to move fast, so I'm moving fast. It's another 1-cost card. This time it's a 1-cost event. It's a tactic called Precision Fire. It is aggression, and it says, attack with a unit. It gains Saboteur for this attack. If it's a trooper, it also gains +2/+0 for this attack. Obviously, Saboteur ignores a Sentinel, and you defeat any of the defender's shields before the damage is done. So that's exciting, right? Because again, just like giving something Saboteur is another way to get past Sentinel, but we also see indications of, hey, maybe you should be thinking about building a low to the ground kind of trooper deck. The card we just looked at was also a trooper as far as traits go. So I think this is definitely a tribe that's gaining more support as we see cards being revealed. And this is going to be, just a great event to put in that deck, right? At 1 cost, you can fit it in with in an early turn. If you just want to sneak through and get some damage done, it's a finisher potentially. If you want to just, again, sneak through and get that last little bit of damage done. The only thing I find that's a little bit funny is that it says it's called Precision Fire, but we have a Stormtrooper on it. And yeah, I know he's holding a sniper rifle, and I know there's a line where Obi-Wan's like, only Imperial Stormtroopers are this precise, which didn't prove to really be true. But I just find it kind of humorous that there's a Stormtrooper on this card. It's a great piece of art too, by the way. I do like the art on this card. I've talked about this before, but I like the Stormtrooper in profile with the sniper rifle. Very cool. But also a very cool card, and one that I would absolutely include in any aggression deck I was going to build based on what we've seen so far.
Of course, like to me, this is even like Saboteur is the bonus. It's this is what you put in your trooper decks, just to give a +2/+0 to trade upwards on something. If you have something with like a 5 that you need to punch through that has like a 5 or 6 health, you just put one of these on something loaded like a 1 or 2 drop and value trade with it. The Saboteur part, honestly, like if they have a Sentinel up, I would go after the Sentinel to value trade into it so that I don't even have to worry about it later. I mean, like, I feel like this is just more aggression. It's a 1-cost card that just +2s a trooper, and I think that's what you want to do. The Saboteur part is like a bonus, but in my opinion, like, unless you're going for the kill and you're going for the throat, this is more of a card that is built to trade up or just to finish off your opponent.
Yeah, I agree with everything said. The only part that I will add is that the Saboteur is a bonus, but it does fill a really important role here because this is an aggression-only card. Aggression historically has just been the source of direct damage when you think about terms in terms of removal. So shield is very often a premium way to defend against aggression, and this granting Saboteur gives you a way to go around shielded as well. Mm-hmm. I know we always think about it going through Sentinel, but having this just beat on a unit with shield on it's also pretty good value.
I forgot about that part. You're right.
Yep. Did your opponent just play their Iden Versio and you're like, oh no, a shield? Well, guess what?
Eat my trooper.
Yeah, well,
how bad does it feel when you flip your 6-resource leader on your 6-resource turn, and then a trooper just comes in, a 2-damage trooper gets +2 suddenly and just kills your leader?
Oh, like the previous card, like the Spec Force Soldier gets the +1/+0 and just kills it for 2 resources. You killed their leader. So you're right. Like that's what I'm saying. Like it's an upward trade every single time.
That's another thing where I look at Iden Versio and I'm like, the health is maybe a little bit low. But,
I wouldn't. I mean, that's the problem is you have to insulate her. Like in my opinion, you have to play her, and then 4 health is not enough. It's not enough at all. In my opinion, it's something you play her, and then maybe you give her like entrenched or something, or not even. I don't know, man. Like
I really like her. So one of the other reasons that she really appeals to me is that she reinforces what I've been saying for a while, which is I don't think you always want to auto flip your leader the moment you hit the resource threshold. And I think she is definitely one where you want to time it for value.
Yeah.
Well, the thing I think people need to remember is that flipping your leader doesn't cost anything. So I think the idea with her is that you flip her on, turn 6 or 7 or whatever, whenever you feel the pressure, then you play your cards in such a way, you use all the resources that you have to kill a bunch of things, either at once or over the course of the turn, and then you heal a bunch. You ideally have it set up so she's not going to die right away, of course, and then you just do a big sort of like boost of healing through her ability, because it's not, when she's flipped, it's not a once per round thing. It's just when an enemy unit is defeated, heal 1 damage from your base. So you can turn her flip turn into some very big swing turns, which I suppose on second thought kind of justifies her low health, because that is a big threat if she stays up for multiple turns. Suddenly, like, all the damage you've done might be getting kind of reversed in the right deck. So, okay, I take back what I said earlier. 4 health is probably a good spot for her to be at, because now that I think about it, that could be a ridiculously strong turn.
All right, let's go to the next one. It is a 3-cost event, double command. This is Attack Pattern Delta. I think that this is a card almost recycled, I think, from Star Wars CCG. There was a card similar to this with Snow Speeders. Basically, what this does is it's a tactic, an event. Give a friendly unit +3/+3 for this phase, give another friendly unit +2/+2, and give a third friendly unit +1/+1. You're getting 12 points of value for 3 at a double command aspect rate. This is incredibly good. This is, in my consideration, probably, I would put this in my trooper deck and pay the penalty. I would pay 5 for this to improve my troopers and go. I don't think that you can get around playing troopers without heroism and without aggression. So including this, I would have to play test this and see if this gets the value for 5, which I think it does. 12 points of value for 5 cost is still very good. And I really like that they costed it as a double command aspect. To me, this is sort of a I would want to play this. I doubt you're playing it as a 3, like on curve for 3 or whatever. I think this is something, as you've basically established the board and you're going for the kill shot, it's like, all right, let's go. It's go time. Let's just get all, tie your shoes, get your stuff. Yeah. We're going. And I think that that's what this card is meant to do.
Yeah, you're definitely not playing it on your 3 resource turn, because it's like, I can't imagine a scenario where you have like enough units on the field on your second turn to do this. That'd be like, if you know how to get 3 units out on your first turn and then set that up, I would love to know, because that would be like the most aggressive deck in the universe. That'd be amazing. But yeah, this is definitely a good mid to late game, I think, finisher helper. So go ahead.
I was going to say, the real question is, do you have to have 3 units to play it?
You don't have to, but I think you lose out on some of the buffing if you do.
I mean, you do, but I love that it trails off. So
yeah,
while I don't think this will be something we have to worry about, theoretically, if you dropped 2 1-drops on your first turn and then you did play this on curve, like getting +5 on an aggressive start would be really, really strong. I just don't think you're also playing double command and playing an aggressive strategy. Where I see this card shining, if I'm being entirely honest, is likely either in some sort of trooper deck, like Flake said, if you can make it work, or some other swarm deck, or if you are playing ramp and you run this as like a one-of, because if you run it as a one-of and you draw it and it's not useful, you just resource it, right? But on the times where, maybe you've played DJ Death Star and like one other unit and your opponent is not respecting them because they're small and they're not attacking into them, they don't want to ramp for you. Well, now suddenly you play this buff and they all trade up and you get your value, right? So I could see this as just like one of those, I'll run one of, and maybe I catch someone by surprise, or worst case scenario, I resource it.
Yeah, that's one of the great things about this game, is that if you have a card in your hand that you're like, well, this is useless to me right now, resource it. Yeah, think about your next few turns first, but then if you don't need it, resource it.
That was one thing that I used to do all the time, was I would overvalue cards, and I would and then I would take damage, or I would make poor decisions to value those cards in my hand. And then ultimately, when I did get to play it, it was way too late, and it never made sense. That was one thing that was what improved me as a card gamer was realizing that, a card's time is not always in every single game. And, you need to sometimes just maximize the value in the here and now. Let's go to the next one, which is probably one of my favorite cards so far.
It's so good.
Well, then you should do it. Go ahead.
Do it.
You
it,
sure?
Frank.
Okay.
Go for it.
Well, all right then. All right. I'm seeing the light. There is good in me. It is a 4-cost unit ground. It is aggression. It is heroism. It is our good friend K2SO, one of the best droids from one of the best, if not the best, Star Wars movie, Rogue One. It's Cassian's counterpart. K2SO is a 4/4 rebel droid. He's got overwhelm, but by golly, that's not it. Because when K2SO is defeated, for each opponent, which alludes to multiplayer commander-style games, by the way, or 2v2 or whatever, choose one. Either deal 3 damage to that player's base or that player discards a card from their hand. So, this is either going to push more tempo of aggression, of dealing more damage to the base. With overwhelm, you'll be able to punch through things. Or the other option is, if you suspect that if your opponent's on top deck and they're holding on to one card, and K2SO bites it, just ditch their card. Don't even worry about it. So I love the versatility of the card. I love the stat line. I love everything about K2SO.
Yeah. It's a great card. It's a rare, and it lives up to the rare quality card, fantasy, I guess, where good stat line. Overwhelm is always nice. With 4, you're going to be overwhelming a little bit. It seems like 3 is a big break point in this game, so 4 is great. And two great when defeated abilities, very versatile. Yeah, like you said, you not a lot to add to it. You can choose whichever the best one is in the scenario. But I think this is important because K2SO is about as close to a main character in Star Wars as you can get without really being a main character. He's a main character for one movie, right? So that's like second tier main character in my book. Awesome character, and I like that they use the scene where he catches the grenade and then he just like tosses it behind him.
Beautiful
and
scene.
Stormtroopers. Yeah, it's fun, but it's a really cool card. Like I said, I like the scene. I like everything about this card. The only thing I don't like about it is that it's aggression, heroism, which makes it really only usable in heroism decks to a certain extent. But that's okay. They can have something,
Yeah. So it's only in potentially heroism, but I do want to point out one of the reasons that I like this. So I know we're supposed to be going fast. I'll talk fast. One, I know I said earlier, one of the first decks I'm looking at is a Vigilance Control. The second one, 100%, is going to be an aggressive Sabine heroism aggression deck, right? Sabine's one of my favorite characters. There's a lot of really, really good stuff in aggression and heroism. K2SO fits that bill. Has overwhelm, very good aggressive. Keyword, when defeated, you can deal damage. Love everything about this card. It's one of my favorites that was revealed. Thank you, Nerds Strike Back. They also revealed the next one, which is, spoiler alert, really good in aggressive decks. But the other reason I like this is that aggression is a trait or an aspect, that I do feel can still be played in control archetypes. And historically, at least so far in set 1, it's leaned more toward that being with villainy. I think about cards like Emperor Palpatine, where it's an aggression card, but when you play it, it's very clearly like a late game bomb to control the board. This, with the discard effect, kind of gives me the hint, or hopefully the foreshadowing, that we will also have some sort of heroism variant where you can still play aggression but use it as a control tool as well. And K2SO is so good because he can be in both. Either you push damage, or if you're playing the control variant, making someone discard a card helps you play the attrition. So yeah, I love this card. One of my favorites from the recent reveals. 2
things about this. Number one, the artwork of that scene is awesome, and I need somebody to Photoshop him doing a mic drop. That's the one thing. The second,
sounds like a great altar, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Like him just dropping the mic. The other one is I want to see somebody Photoshop this art where he's kind of riding an escalator in a mall. Like that's the other thing that I want to see, or like a merry-go-round. Let's go to
I want to take him and shrink him really tiny and then have another one standing above him.
Oh,
so
holding
it's like
his hand.
Holding the bigger one's hand. Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Don't talk to me or my son ever again.
You want to do the next one, Doa?
Sure. It's benthic 2 tubes because he's got 2 tubes on his face, I guess.
Are you
One
sure
of
that's
the
not a slur?
I was thinking
don't-
that. That's why I didn't let you do this one. That's why I gave it to Doa, because I didn't want you to
nickname. It's his nickname, I guess, and he's okay with it because that's what his friends call him, I guess. I don't know. I'm not here to comment on that aspect of the card, no pun intended. I'm here to just comment on his quality in the Star Wars Unlimited trading card game. But he's one of Saw Gerrera's buddies in on whatever that planet is that they go to, Jeddah, in Rogue One. It's another trooper. Another rebel trooper. That rebel trooper tribe definitely coming alive. 1 for a 2/2 again. So he's got that nice aggressive stat line. And on attack, another aggression unit gains raid 2 for this phase. On raid, in case you've forgotten, it's you get whatever the number is of raid in attack when attacking. So he gives another aggression unit +2 when attacking that phase. So I mean, man, you attack for it with benthic 2 tubes, and suddenly one of your other little troopers swings in for 4 or 5, whatever it is, So yeah, just another great enabler of the aggressive, low to the ground play style that we expected to see from aggression, but it's cool to see it come together.
This card's outstanding. Let me just jump right in. I'll try to talk fast. This card is so good. So it has relevant tags: Rebel, very important; Trooper, very important. This is only aggression as the aspect. So earlier we were singing the praises of the other one drop, but keep in mind that was heroism and aggression. This is just aggression. So if you're playing any sort of low to the ground aggro deck, whether it's heroism or villainy, this has to be a staple because it's a 1 for a 2/2 with 2 relevant tags that has the potential to give you a 4/2 in stats, right? You get the 2/2 body, and then on attack, he'll grant something else raid 2, so it gets the +2. That's absurd value. It becomes like one of the must answer cards. And if you have this, and then you also have another high tier, high quality 1-drop, and you play them both turn 1, you're making your opponent pick their poison. It's an absolutely phenomenal card. I love it.
This is going to be a potential pack 1 pick 1 in my opinion. If the rare is kind of mild, this is absolutely a pack 1 pick 1. The other part, the only downside to this card is that it's unique. That is the only downside because there are no 3 tubes. There's only 2 tubes. Okay, so there's just the one dude. So far, you're right. You never know. But yeah,
you can run 3 copies of 2 tubes, but only 1 can be in play at a time.
Oh my god!
You can't have 2 tubes on the board.
Too many 2 tubes. Yeah. We're done. I promise you. Thank you, Nerd Strike Back. You said it all, Charmer. I'm not going to go any deeper. At the very least, a 1 aspect 2/2 with upside. Let's be real. That's just basically already above rate. Who wants to do the next one, Charmer?
Could I do the next one?
Oh, yes.
My favorite.
Yeah, I was gonna say let somebody else do this one.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. I don't like to jump in and do 2 in a row very often.
Do it.
But this is
2 tubes.
Probably it's 2 cards, 2 tubes. It's probably my favorite ship design in all of Star Wars, which is the medical frigate design. And it's not just any medical frigate. It's Redemption, famous for being at the battle at the end of Return of the Jedi and all that. One of the most iconic ships in Star Wars. When I think of Star Wars ships, is one of the first one that comes to mind because I love the design of this ship, and I always have, because it looks so space shippy. And that sounds strange, but what I mean is something that could never really exist easily in an atmosphere. This is something that can really only be assembled and flown in outer space. So I've always loved the design for it. But let's talk about the card. It costs 8. It's Vigilance, Heroism, Rebel Vehicle, Capital Ship, 6/9 for stats, with Sentinel, and a very interesting ability. When played, heal up to 8 total damage from any number of units and or bases. Deal that much damage to this unit. So it trades its own health to heal other things. So it's very interesting to consider the usage of this card in a lot of ways. On the one hand, you've got a 9 health Sentinel in space. That's a really big amount of protection for that lane, right? So you may just want to play it and just park it there and say, all right, well, you got to run 9 damage into this now. On the other hand, you have the ability to create this big burst of healing where you need it too. So you can almost, kind of like we talked about with the unit earlier, use it as more of an event than a unit, and just give yourself a crucial amount of healing right at the right time late game. It is expensive, but if you're running a slower deck that it's grindier, that goes late, that amount of healing can be very, very big. Not to mention, if there's ways to like do the damage when you play this and then heal it back up, then suddenly you kind of get the best of both worlds. So we have to sort of see what options, will be there for that. But I'm just excited to see the ship in the game. I've always loved Redemption. Like I said, one of my favorite ship designs. And it just so happens that it's got some really cool abilities too. So yeah, I'm excited about this card. It does cost 8, so I do wonder how viable something like this is going to be. How often are games going to go to where you're reliably able to get to an 8 resource turn? But you can be pretty sure that I'm going to try to build a deck that gets there. I love Star Destroyers. I love the big capital ships. So I'm going to try to make decks that get me those ships out. So I'm hyped about this one.
When you mentioned that this can be played kind of like almost as an event, I thought that was a very cool way to put it, because you're right. And part of the value of this is you can do it to rescue other units, or it's a 6/9 Sentinel in space that is a behemoth to get through. A lot of Star Destroyers can't get through this. But beyond that, you're right, because when cards become flexible and versatile, their value goes through the roof. Any card that could do multiple things or spread out things, and where you're not leaking any value out of it, that's what this is. Because sometimes it's like you just want to heal something enough so that it survives a trade, and then you can have, like, if you just need to heal 3, it still lives on the board as a 6/6 Sentinel. Like, this card is so damn good. And I don't think that there's ever going to be an issue of you getting to 8 resources as a vigilance aspect deck, because it heals a lot. There's a lot of restore effects. There's a lot of big body, stick to the board kind of cards that can help you out there. I honestly believe that getting to a situation where you can deploy this safely, that like this is kind of like your big turnaround pivot play. You play this, you heal some stuff, whatever comes after that has to bash through this to some degree. You might heal just to the part where it's like, all right, well, you've got a 5/5 in space. I'm just going to heal 3, leave up a 6/6, and you can't trade into this. Or you have to waste an action to beef up the thing, and then I can respond accordingly. So this card, to me, is of like an A+, definitely an A+. And I know we're going to give ratings. We're doing our whole ratings series of episodes, but
once everything's released,
yeah, I'm going to give this a preemptive A+ right out of the gate.
Wow.
There's a couple of other fun bits that I want to highlight about this, because we're trying to go fast, so I'll touch on the big ones. One, I think healing 3 will be the most common use, because a card like Takedown exists. So you can heal 3 and then stay out of takedown range while having a big fatty. But the really good players will be able to express skill and identify if they think their opponents are playing takedown or not, and then they might be able to heal more. I also really like this card when you start thinking about interactions both with your own deck and with your opponent's deck, and return effects. So if you're playing against a cunning opponent and you think, hey, they're running like Waylay, okay, fine, I'll gain 8. Bounce it. I dare you. I want to gain 8 again and again. And similarly, if you're not on like a double vigilance build or something, if you're playing heroism, cunning, and vigilance together, you might consider some of those effects where you just bounce this yourself and then replay it, and then it's an engine. But the last bit and the reason that I do like it is that it's flexible, because if you are way ahead in a game, but you draw it and you still want to play it for the body value, you're not losing out on value. If you don't heal your base, you can just have more health on the unit, right? So this is one of those cards that in other games, if it was just like a 6/6 that says when you play it, heal 3 from your base, it might feel bad if you're, at 28 or 29 on a 30 health base and you're like, well, I still really want to play it, but I'm not going to get full value. This always gives you full value one way or the other. So yeah, love it.
Should be good.
Yep. Next up, who wants the next one?
I'll do this one because this card's also outstanding, and it's great in that Sabine aggro deck that I want to play. So this is For a cause I believe in. This is a 3-cost event. It is Heroism and Aggression. It's a rare card. On the stream, it was also said this is one of Danny's favorite cards. So, if Daddy Schaefer loves it, it's got to be good. It says, reveal the top 4 cards of your deck. For each Heroism card revealed this way, deal 1 damage to an enemy base. Then you may discard any of the revealed cards and put the rest back on top of your deck in any order. I like dealing 4 damage and then sorting out my draws.
I mean, that's the best part of all of this, I think, is that you can potentially go damage positive for the cost and then filter your next turn's draws, at least. So it's fantastic card for Heroism Aggression. Auto include 3 of, I think, in a lot of cases, unless you plan on running a lot of like just basic aggression cards. But from what we've seen, I mean, it seems like, there's going to be a lot of heroism in there. So, yeah, you can definitely tailor your deck to hit 4 on this every time.
This one, to me, is very much, this is like your Trooper deck sort of late game bastion of hope kind of thing, where you might be struggling for looking for cards and getting stuff, and you don't want to draw 2 and it's just 2 things you don't want. Having this card is such that you're not only doing damage to your opponent, it's a card that'll find value there, but also that the next 2 cards are going to be the ideal of the next 4. So you're sort of shaping your next turn to be at least continue to be competitive. This isn't a game ender, it's merely a game extender, and sometimes for Trooper aggro low to the ground decks, that's what you need. So I think that this is, like you said, Doa, definitely a 3 of.
Do you think there's any relationship to For a Cause I Believe in and reveal the top 4 cards? That's a very Star Wars CCG thing of them to do.
It is.
Have a little subtle. Is that a pun, I suppose, in there? Yeah.
Remember the Tanika sisters, where it's like everything about them were like 2. If you have 2 of this, use 2 force to choose 2 cards.
Yep.
I'll get the next one. Next one is a simple event, a 2-cost event called Keep Fighting. It's a tactic, single aspect aggression. Ready a unit with 3 or less power. Attack, set them up, line them up, send them again. Why not? And I think this is cool. You've got one of the clone troopers in like one of the training facilities. Which clone was this? The dude who had the big Gatling gun?
This doesn't look like a training facility. This looks like real life. This looks like a life and death situation he's in right now. He's surrounded by droids, man. Yeah. That's some harsh training. It's like defeat hundreds of droids or die.
All right, you got it. It could be real life. We'll say Hunter and Friends. Brett Spiel or Brett Spiele. I apologize for pronouncing that incorrectly. Nonetheless, yeah. I mean, this to me is. I don't think that this is really. I don't think it's a great card. I wouldn't play it. Oftentimes, if I'm sending a card with 3 or less, to me, this is something where it has to have an on-attack effect that really does some big deal, that you want to have it maybe twice in a turn. But if it's just like a regular card that you're dealing damage with, I don't want to spend 2 to ready it up and then, wait another turn to do something with it.
There's a couple of things that I would say you would want to consider whether or not you want to run this. I agree with you. I think that it shines with on-attack effects. So somebody like Benthic 2 Tubes, for example, fantastic. But there's also a lot of other really good on-attacks effects that have like low attack values. So like Sabine the Leader is one, Yoda, or any other restore effect card. Because again, remember, this is just aggression. So if you're trying to use aggression as a control tool, then using this to like attack twice with a restore unit could be a pretty big deal. But the other thing that we have to remember is this readies any unit. So this also theoretically lets you attack with units you've just played this turn. So it's a nice card. I think that you could, again, maybe run 1 or 2 of. If you get it too early, maybe you resource it. But later on, if you're in an aggro deck and you're stalling out, and you have a pair of 3 drops you draw, but you're at 5 resources, well, you can play 1, but then probably attack with it right away. And then you're still getting some sort of value. So, but yeah, there's a lot of aggressive cards that have low attack values because they have things like raid, right? So like Fifth Brother is another one. I know there's more that I'm forgetting, but that's where I would see this card potentially shining. Any of those ones where the value is in the attack action itself.
Yeah, you can use it to sort of dictate your opponent's line of play too, which is again, going to be one of the most important strategic things to keep in mind with this game. So speaking of using good old tubes as an example again, you attack with them once, you say, okay, I'm giving this aggression creature plus 2 raid 2, then you're like, all right, I'm going to keep fighting. I'm going to ready Benthic again. And they know now, okay, he's going to attack with Benthic again. He's going to give another raid 2 to this guy. He's going to be buffed even more. So now I feel the pressure of responding to either Benthic or this other unit. And ideally, it's in a way that's favorable to, you as the person who's playing Keep Fighting.
I don't think it'll come up often because it requires your opponent to basically pretend your board doesn't exist and not interact with it. But theoretically, this is also a card that would shine late in the game if you're using Grand Inquisitor, because you could attack with a unit, then deploy your Grand Inquisitor. His on attack is you may deal 1 to another friendly unit with 3 or less and then attack with it. So he attacks, he readies the other one, you attack with that again. Then you use this to ready your Grand Inquisitor again. He attacks, readies the other one again. Yep. So this is definitely one of those things where you could chain together a bunch of interactions if your opponent takes the initiative or ends their turn too early. So there is, I think, some use cases for this.
Oh, totally. Yeah. It's gonna be one of those cards that's difficult to play as effectively as it can be. I think it's a card with a high ceiling, but a fairly high floor as well, as far as playing it the right way. Because you can definitely have turns where you play it and then they just kill the thing, and you're like, well, now I used my 2 resources and I didn't get anything out of it, and they're fine with removing that other unit because they were going to do it anyway. And yeah, so there's definitely ways to sort of hurt yourself with this card, but a good player is going to be able to put it to really good use.
Well, that's the thing. I think that this has to connect with certain creatures, certain units to actually be a good card. And I don't know. Maybe it's just because I have no interest in playing a trooper aggro deck that I'm aggression to me. It's not my play style. That to me, they're in terms of the hierarchy of decks I want to try. I'm I want to try a Thrawn Cunning deck. I want to try a big Star Destroyer control command deck. This to me is 3 or 4 or 5 rungs below that, so let's go to the next one. The next one is a space unit. It is a 2-drop Cunning and Villainy Cartel Spacer. It's a 2/3 underworld vehicle fighter. When played, if you control another Cunning unit, exhaust an enemy unit that costs 4 or less. Love it. Really love this card. Anything that just immediately puts something out of commission. This just reeks of cunning through and through. The fact that this is just a 2-drop that just negates something bigger than it can potentially just give you a lane to attack freely and not have to worry about that thing the bigger thing retaliating. Again, cunning really, I feel, in my opinion, really wants initiative a lot. It really wants the initiative. This to me is all right, I go first. I'm dropping this. Your 4-drop that you played last turn is now out of commission. So I think that this card is going to have some decent utility. I want to see more cards, obviously, but I really like this card.
Yeah, I mean, it's got a good stat line too, right? 2 for a 2/3. It's going to just have that little bit extra durability that's going to help out a lot. And yeah, great on play, or when played rather. It has the condition right, but you feel like if you're putting this card in your deck, you're gonna be building the deck in a way that condition should be pretty easily met each turn. So I'm not so worried about that. But yeah, I think it's a strong looking card. Not much else to say. It's good.
Yeah, low cost, good stats, likely very relevant even if drawn late in the game. Only other thing that I'll add is, again, Underworld and Fighter tags on this. So as more and more sets come out, will potentially fit in more and more themes as well. So I also like this card a lot.
Yeah, I'm excited. Mm-hmm. I'm excited. Charmer, you want the next one?
No, I'll let you do it.
Me?
Oh. Yeah.
Okay. Sure. I also thought of another mount. Do you consider the gigantic space worm that they were in as something that they rode or mounted?
I don't think they did either of those things. I think they went in it and then escaped it.
Okay. They were moving while inside it, but I don't think they mounted it.
All right. Yeah. Okay, fine.
I think you need to find Star Wars Paul Atreides to ride the Star Wars giant, space worm if you want to do something like that.
There's a Dune reference that I actually got, which is surprising because I am not a Dune fan in any way. This is a 3-drop unit ground. It is Bodhi Rook. You might remember him as the pilot from
He's
Rogue
a pilot,
One.
I heard. Yeah.
I want to give some context to this character and this scene because I was already mesmerized by Rogue One. I was so captivated by that movie the first time I saw it, and to me the sort of consequence of knowing that when a movie is good, you get so enveloped in it that you kind of forget about a lot of the outside factors. Because when there's a movie that I'm not all in, I begin to criticize it against other things, either within its own lore or against other similar things. Rogue One to me and Star Wars, obviously, if I'm gonna watch it, I know so much about like the peripheral stuff that when I watched Rogue One, it was such a good movie that I forgot what the consequence of the entire movie was. Because when Bodhi, spoiler alert, dies in that movie, that's the thing. They throw the grenade in there. They throw the explosive in there. He dies fulfilling his mission. That was the snap factor where I was like, oh my God, I completely forgot everybody dies like in this movie. And that was, again, I was like, this movie was so good. And I was so enthralled by the characters, the story, everything that I was secretly hoping. I was like, I wonder what happens to these characters. I was so into it. And then that was the scene when he dies, you know, bridging the communication gap between the surface and the ships above. That's when it all came crashing back to me. And I was like, holy Moses, they all die. That was it. So Bodhi Rook is a double cunning 3-drop, a 3/3 Imperial Rebel. That is a cool one. Imperial Rebel. When played, look at an opponent's hand, discard a non-unit card from it. Beautiful. Just beautiful. I love it. It's cunning. It's Imperial and Rebel. It plays both sides of the boards, baby, so that it always comes out on top, you know, to use a Mac term from It's Always Sunny.
Unless it dies.
Unless it dies, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Unless it's in Rogue One. But I really like this card too, and I think it's a good example of how we've seen the double aspect cards really kind of like go far into what that aspect's identity is. Without touching on that massive conversation, right? But it's, you know, so double cunning. So you get to do something extra good in the cunning line of play where you get to look at your opponent's hand and discard a non-unit card from it, right? It's a little bit more limited than Spark of Rebellion. But, you know, you do get to do that kind of extreme end of the cunning aspect kind of thing. It's a 3 for 3. So I think it's going to be one of those like circumstantially good cards. You don't want to, you know, play it and then whiff, right? Because if they don't have a non-unit, then you're like, well, I got this 3 for 3. I guess that's okay. But to me, this looks like a sideboard card, right? This looks like a card where I'm like, I'm gonna include this depending on like what I think I'm going to run into at this day at the store or something, you know?
If only there were a leader that was going to let you see the cards your opponent was drawing. If only we had a way to know that they had.
Like you talk about like the galactic Mr. Burns that is Thrawn.
Oh yeah, that Thrawn. I do think that he'll likely be an auto include in all Thrawn decks. I do otherwise kind of agree he will likely be a sideboard card. I just personally love that this is the card game equivalent of like I double dog dare you. So what I mean by that is there's a bunch of single cunning cards that care about events being played. So they're like, all right, I'm going to play this unit. And then they're like, well, I dare you to leave it up or else I'll play events and get some value. And then Mr. Rook here is like, all right, well, you're on single cunning, but I'm on double cunning. And I double dog dare you to have events in your hand because I'm going to just strip them out. So it's like, it's weird that it's a cunning card that probably works best countering cunning because cunning has a lot of event-based themes, but it's also going to get value, you know, against the other aspects as well. But that was one of the bits that I liked about it.
Yeah, I think every deck is going to have some level of events in it, but some decks are going to be very event heavy. Some decks are going to be very event light. But yeah, like you said, if you're playing Thrawn, then, you know, you can just use the ability. You can see what's in their hand. Then you can like target that specifically. I think he still, again, depending on the deck, right? Like I'm always going to have 3 cards around to replace Bodhi Rook if I need to, right? Because even if I'm playing Thrawn and I'm running into a deck with like barely any events, then I'm like, well, maybe sit this one out, Bodhi.
God,
take a break.
I really love this card. I just like so much
It's a good card.
of what cunning does. Anyway, we'll get
Duress on a body.
Yeah, that's it.
Like,
It's
what's not to
duress.
like?
It's duress on a body. Like that's exactly what it is. And there are cards like that.
Was duress non-creature?
Duress
Yeah.
was a one.
I'm trying to remember.
A one
Yeah,
black.
one cost black. Yeah.
Sorcery. Yeah. There was a card like the Cave Bat or something from Lost Caverns of Ixalan. It was like a 2-drop black card, 1/1 flyer with lifelink that would look, and it would do that. It would do the duress effect, but it would take any card but it would hide it under the bat. But in limited, that card was busted because it was hard to warrant spending resources to kill a 1/1 flyer. But
Yeah.
we'll move on to the next one. You want this one or do you want the next one, Doa?
I can do it. I can do whatever. This one is 2-cost single cunning card. It's a Crafty Smuggler. He's an underworld unit, 2/2, and shielded. So that's kind of interesting. That I feel like shielded is more of a vigilance mechanic, but here we do see things cross aspects every once in a while. It feels like, and this is kind of one of those occasions where it's like, just a 2 for a 2/2 with a shield on it. That's going to be an annoyingly sticky unit. It's fairly restricted in its traits. Like if you're building a trooper deck, I don't know, if it's good enough to include in there because of the shield token, but it's certainly not going to synergize with the other trooper stuff, right? So I think it's a good, solid, limited card. It seems like Charmer's nodding. Okay, I got that right. I'm getting good at limited.
It's Grizzly Bears but with upside, so you're fine.
Oh yeah, Grizzly
There you
Bears.
go. 2 for 2 to a shield. Solid limited card. There you go. And maybe, just maybe, in some constructed decks.
I've got some points about this because there's two things that you can kind of infer between this and the other one we spoiled earlier, which was Mr. Benthic 2 Tubes. Because 2 Tubes was a 2/2 for 1 single aspect. This is a 2/2 for 2 single aspect. So what we're looking at here is what the value is of certain things like uniqueness, what shield is worth, what raid on attack raid 2 is worth, because for 1 extra resource all you're getting is shield, but you get a generic tag to it. You can play 3 of them on the board at a time. For Benthic 2 Tubes, you're only paying 1. You get the raid thing, but it's a unique aspect, or it's a unique unit that you can only play 1 of at a time. So what I like about this, and also the other differentiating factor is uncommon versus common. So you're seeing what the sort of differences are for a 2/2 in terms of like those 3 things, in terms of like cost, shield, uniqueness, rarity. It's a cool comparison to make, but overall, like you said, it's a grizzly bear with a shield, and I think it's actually not bad. I think that a 2/2 a 2-drop with a shield as a 2/2 is not terrible. Like, it could trade early game if you get it, or you resource it. And I think that a lot of people are going to forget the fact that, certain cards are only good on turns 1 and 2 for you. And beyond that, you just resource them. And that's fine. Because if you get this in the opening hand and you can drop it, great. If not, just resource it and don't worry about it.
I'd run it in like Boba Fett probably, right? Where it's like it's an early game, probably trades up. You still have your 2/2 on the board. They lose a unit. You ready some resources. So I think it'll be good in Boba Fett at least. And it was used in Boba Fett on that stream. So that's that seems to be a bit of an indication too. But yeah, I think it's a good unit.
Anything beyond Grizzly Bear?
Grizzly Bear with shield, good limited.
Deal.
Yeah. All right.
You get, in my opinion, the most groundbreaking card that we've had so far.
Yeah, but I definitely need to take this one.
Yes.
Go for it.
This is a 3-cost ground unit titled Volunteer Soldier. It's not unique. It's just a volunteer soldier. It is a trooper, has a 2/3 stat line, also has raid 1. Now you might be saying, all right, it costs 3, but if you control a trooper unit, it costs 1 less to play. So if you control a trooper, then it becomes a 2 for a 2/3. But the real selling point of this is that it is neutral. It is without any aspects. Much like me, it has no identity on its own.
Yeah.
It is useless by itself.
But unlike you, it has a
Wow.
lot of redeeming qualities, Charmer. So
Yeah.
Oh wow! I'm just gonna stay out of this.
So this one is interesting, obviously, because it's the first time we've seen a neutral card. One of the things on the live stream that they pointed out is that you're gonna immediately look at the set number and then do some calculations to kind of figure out how many neutral cards there may or may not be coming. But they did also specifically call out, the reason for including some neutral cards is that sometimes you're playing limited or you're drafting and you just don't find stuff in your aspect. And so this is one way where, they already have the cool built-in, like you can pay the tax. And this is like that middle ground, right? Because this is the kind of thing where if it had an aspect, it would be likely a 2-drop based on what you're staring at. So that would mean it would cost 4. Or if you're in limited, you could draft this because it's like taking something outside your aspects, but with a discount of 1.
Yeah, it's I mean, you definitely put it in Trooper deck. That's for sure. Because you're gonna get that value 100% of the time. But yeah, like I said, I think limited will be good. I don't really have a lot to add. I think it's really interesting that we have unaspected cards. That's new and that's cool. It makes me wonder, what else will be put in there, because you got to be really careful if you're making a card game like this and you're making cards that can just be in any deck. That's a recipe for cards to be made that it's like, well, no, I'm just going to put this in every deck I ever make. So I hope
every card can go in any deck already. That's the
sure,
beauty of the
but
game.
you know what I mean, like easily, like without being penalized for the aspect. But I hope every one of them has little qualifying elements to this, right? Where it's either like slightly more expensive or you have to jump through a little extra hoop, but it's there if you really want to go in on one particular angle for your deck, and this will augment that angle, and you're willing to pay this like little extra neutral card tax to get there. So I'm really intrigued by where they're going to take this. But it's a cool card, and yeah, seems auto include for troopers. So
most
there you go.
games that I've played that have had a classification or a neutral, that have neutral sort of affiliation, as it were. So Gwent has neutral cards. Magic has artifacts that have no color affiliation. The typical payoff for that is they are weaker. The bang for the buck is weaker because of the versatility of it. So I get it. Like I think the way they've circumvented that in designing this is as a 3-drop for 2/3 is not great, but we're going to give you a pass if you fit it into the theme of what it's meant to be. And I like that. And I think it's great. I think that that's what's needed, because if you look at Magic and artifacts, if you do like a 4-cost artifact, a creature in Magic is probably going to be a 3/3 or a 4/4 vanilla. A 4-drop with double color in Magic is likely a 5/6, a 5/5 with text. Like, you get a lot more benefit as soon as you're restricting it with some sort of color or mana association. This to me is great because they sort of say it's going to suck unless you play it within the sort of scheme or that we envisioned it to be in. Also about this is the artwork is using the Theed Palace security uniforms and arguably the worst weapon design I have ever seen in Star Wars, which is this weird handheld rifle-ish thing with the most obscene scope on it for some reason.
Scope.
That's what I'm saying. There's no stock to it. There's no butt stock to sort of aim with.
Yeah.
But I also want to sort of match this with that movie also featured one of my favorite weapons, which is Queen Amidala's blaster, which I thought was the cleanest, sleekest looking little pistol that packed a wallop. So I had to look at that nonsense, and then I got the palate cleanser of Padme shooting the crap out of a bunch of droids.
Even Obi-Wan saw that blaster and he was like, that's fairly elegant.
Yeah.
There you go.
I have one last thing that I want to point out, and this is regarding like potential balance of the neutral cards. We've already seen a number of cards that care about aspect, and I don't mean in terms of the tax. Even today, as we're talking about reveals, cards like Benthic Two Tubes, cards like the For a Cause I Believe In, right, where they care about heroism, they care about, another aggression unit. We've got the cartel fighter that cares about seeing another cunning unit, and so yes, this fits into a trooper deck, but Benthic is also a trooper, but he cares about aggression as well. So there's an additional kind of balance and trade-off with the neutral here.
Yeah. I think
just the
more
worst,
trades, the better.
The worst uniform and the worst gun design. That's it.
Wow. Big Naboo hate over here.
Big boomer.
Since you were so angry at that one, why don't you do the next card so that you can talk about a gun that deserves to have a scope on it?
God,
his gun looks like a one of those recorders you get in elementary school, though. If you look at it, it totally does. Like
he's about to play hot cross buns.
Dude.
I'm kind of no shade towards the artist there, but I feel like he was like, oh, I don't know how to draw a gun, and there was his recorder from elementary school sitting on the desk next to him, and he was like, what if I put a scope on this?
What is he the Rob Liefeld of like weapons? Like instead of not being able to draw feet, he just
I said. I don't want to throw shade, but that gun looks exactly like the recorder that I learned to play Ode to Joy on in first grade.
I couldn't remember if that's how it looked in the game, but I just pulled it up, and that's accurate. It kind of looks that way in the game too.
Oh, okay. There's again, the artwork has been phenomenal, and we're poking fun because we're also terrible at artwork. So we are.
Hey, speak for yourself.
I will speak for myself.
Okay.
Totally. So for the record, the card is Del Miko, a unique ground unit, 3-cost, vigilance, villainy, a 3/3 Imperial Trooper. Text saying restore a 1, and it also says each event an opponent plays costs 1 more. This card, I love it for everything but the artwork, because and I will get to the artwork. But first of all, restore 1, a 3-drop 3/3. Pretty run of the mill. Restore 1 again helps you out, but the beautiful part about this is that making your opponent's events cost 1 more. If they're a cunning deck, they're going to play a lot of resources, and if you're taxing every single one by 1 extra, like per, it doesn't say the first one they play; it's every single one. So if they've got like a bunch of 2 or 3 costs, they're going from playing 3 of them to 2 of them potentially. So you're limiting everything that they can do, or they're going to have to pay the first one to deal with this. This is a very sideboard all-star card to me. I would even I could main board this, I think. The problem is I don't know what else is coming within this thing, but to me this is a great sideboard, and I want to close this conversation of this card after you guys talk about the text, because I have some beef with this this artwork.
I can't believe they put Channel Lake Frigid in Star Wars Unlimited. It's fab players out there, you know what I'm talking about. But no, I think it's not quite that strong, obviously, but I agree it can be a good sideboard card. I think it's even fine if you really want to have a 3/3 trooper in your main board. Again, looking at that trooper trait, looking at that Imperial trait too, that might be a reason to put it in. And so if you're just saying, all right, well then you just get a 3/3 for 1, and it's probably going to get some value from the other text, but it may not. Either way, I'm still pretty happy with this. So I think it's a pretty great card for those tribes specifically, for Imperial and for Trooper, and the event thing is just this awesome bonus that can sometimes, I think, be potentially backbreaking for your opponent. So I think it's a pretty great card.
I really like it because if you're playing a Vigilance control deck, and you're with Villainy, right? So if you're on the Iden deck, for example, this does 2 different things for you based on the matchup. So 1, it is a 3/3 with Restore, and the Villainy side of Vigilance doesn't have access to as much Restore. So that ends up being far more relevant, in my opinion. You don't get Yoda, you're not getting the Kanan triggers. You're not getting a lot of those things that you do when you go Heroism Vigilance. So I think that Restore 1's actually pretty important. But then it's more important against aggro, and then you go the reverse, where against other control decks, the interrupting or making them pay an additional tax on the events is a pretty big deal. And I'm glad Flake mentioned hey, this isn't even your first one, because to me, the dream, like if you're playing Control and you're playing like Command, Vigilance, Villainy, and you're like some sort of ramp control, getting one of these down and then ramping into a Relentless feels like you've just locked somebody out, because it's like, all right, you got to pay one extra. The first thing gets automatically countered, and then you got to pay one extra a second time just to get any event through whatsoever. That feels awful.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of like, this all becomes greater than the sum of their parts, right? Like you have this on the board, and each one just kind of is an extra little thorn in your side, to the point where you're like, I can't even do anything that I wanted to. You're right. It is a kind of a lockout situation. Are we ready to talk a little bit about my gripes with the artwork?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. First things first. I really like the artwork in terms of the detail, the background, and sort of what they were trying to accomplish. However, the first thing that I want to talk about is the fact that Del Meeko here, like you said, looks like he just came back from a performance of Flight of the Bumblebees on his flute and then turned it into an assault rifle, which is fine, because there are movies where flute guns were things. Secondly, the dude looks a little bit like Mr. Bean, and that is perfectly okay, but I cannot get that out of my head now. He's got a little Rowan Atkinson to him.
Now that I look at it and think of it in that perspective,
right? The second thing,
I see it a little bit.
The second thing is if you take his belt buckle and draw a line to the center of the scope where his head should be, it looks like his head is coming out of his right shoulder, because nobody can make their head go that far to the side. Like, so that to me, it looks weird to me, because this could have been fixed by just moving the gun forward. And the way he's holding the gun at the trigger, but then the other part for this massive gun, it's so front weighted that you can't hold a gun steady. That I'm not a firearms expert in any way. I have fired an assault rifle before when I was in the U.S. There was nothing I had to. It was part of my entry. But I have fired an AR-15 before, and you have to hold it so it's balanced. There's no way this gun is balanced the way he's holding it.
Yeah, but that's an AR, not a space rifle.
Fine, I will give you that. Why is his head coming out of his right shoulder? You could have easily moved the gun a little bit forward and had the head sort of leaning over. There's no way your head goes there.
Del Meeko is an accomplished, and this is a well-known fact actually in the Imperial Army, classically trained dancer, but one of those ones that like
a
can
contortionist.
do
What is he? He's not a contortionist. He's not.
I mean, I'm willing to give it a pass because of it's at an extreme angle. This artist. Ario Murdy. I looked up his other art, and I really like it actually. Like his other stuff, his comic book work he's done. It looks like he's worked on things like Game of Thrones comics, Stranger Things, and things like that. And I generally really like his way of drawing people. But it's this one again for me. It's just that the gun looks like a flute. That's really my only issue with it. I
haven't seen a flute this dangerous.
This is a very
Green Ranger.
It's a very extreme angle comic book looky kind of thing. So when you're doing this style, you do get to play a little bit with perspective and things like that to make it work from the drama side. So I get what's being done here. So I don't mind it from that regard. For me, if that gun looks like a flute in actual Star Wars lore, then he gets a pass. It's just what the gun looks like. It's just a flute gun. It's hilarious. That's all.
All right.
Great card though.
So the problem with these episodes is that we want to eventually have a discussion about aspect ideologies. That was our mission for the past 3 episodes. The fact remains is that either we're not all here, or there is such an influx of card spoilers that we have to talk about, and they're all so fascinating that we do blow past this. So I promise you, ladies and gentlemen, we have notes written about it. We just don't have time because we're blowing past this. We're like an hour and a half deep into this episode, and we just got past these cool new spoilers. So friends, we will get to that in the future. Is that fair?
Yeah.
I think it's fair. Okay, so what we're going to do then is I'm going to ask Charmer. I'm going to ask you a question. Let's say you have 2 wonderful sons. I've met them. They're great. Stark and Monroe. They're such incredible human beings. they're having their band recital. Okay.
Okay.
You're in there. You're waiting. Monroe, Stark, they're having a great time. Suddenly, the dude on the flute is not there anymore. You're like, where did flute guy go? And you look at the top of the balcony in the rafters, and you see the glint of a scope. What do you say?
This is America. Oh, but also I have a bad feeling about this.
I got a bad feeling about this.
I have a bad feeling about this.
I've got a bad feeling about it.
Quiet.
So last week, when I did this to...
It got real.
Well, when I did it to Doa, he gave the answer. He said, I have a bad feeling. And I explained to him, I said, if this was Charmer, he'd give some stupid answer first. And then and that is precisely where we got to. So
100%.
We're going to get to the bad feeling mailbag. We have one question that was left over from a little while ago, and we promised that we'd get to it. So it is from Virgent Games. Virgent Games asking, there are hints of mill strategy showing up. What is your opinion of the viability of mill in the first set? Now, obviously, the thing about it is that we don't have a lot of information, or we don't have all the cards yet. So there might be some very key pieces mill related. Maybe it's a leader, maybe it's more cards. We don't know. But I want to answer this really quick and say such. It's a 50 card deck, right? So
Yes.
It's a 50 card deck. You're drawing 2 cards, so you're already accelerating the pace of burning through an already smaller deck than what has typically been standard in card games, which is about 60. So mill is already a strategy without even playing mill cards. You just have to buckle down. Adding cards that mill your opponent is, even if there's 2 cards that you can play 3 copies of, you're already there. Mill is already a viable strategy, and I think that it might actually be a concern down the line.
Yeah, I've never been a big fan of mill in card games, just because it strays too close to the I didn't get to play my deck feeling when you lose it. It's like, just the way you shuffled, suddenly, like, 2 out of your 3 copies of something you really need are gone, and you're like, well, I guess that's just that. Like, it's kind of a mill has been in card games since the very beginning, of course. I mean, the name mill itself comes from one of the earliest iterations in Magic the Gathering, right? But it's I've never really enjoyed it as a mechanic, because I feel like it's just a feels bad mechanic, right? There's not really any response you can have to it. You're just like, well, those cards are gone now. And if it's a mill deck, if it's meant to just only do that, then every turn you're just like, well, I just hope I don't discard the thing I really need. And so either you don't and you win and you're like, well, we still didn't really get to play because we weren't really interacting on board, or you do and you're like, well, I just lost because you just got rid of the card, So it doesn't feel like you get to play a complete game when you're in a mill situation. So I'm not a huge fan of it. I'm not upset with a couple cards of it existing in the game, but I don't want to see like heavy mill become a thing in like any game. So that includes this one.
To answer the question, yes, it's absolutely going to be a viable strategy. And Flake already touched on the main reason why. So not even counting the starting cards in your hand, 50 card deck, 2 cards per turn. That's a 25 turn clock, which sounds like a lot, and it is a lot, but it's also kind of not if you're purposefully trying to drag the game out, right? So, I've said a few times here, and so it's just coincidental this was the bad feeling mailbag choice, but if I'm looking at a double vigilance control deck and then I just have to decide between heroism and villainy, the main reason that I was leaning heroism up until these more recent reveals was because I was going to try to make it be mill as the secondary win condition. I think you still, in this game, want to go into it with the plan to win through damage. But if things get out of control, it becomes your alternate win con. So specifically, right now with the cards revealed, if you're running 3 copies of Vigilance, the card, which does have the mill baked in as one of the 4 choices, as well as Kane and Jarrus, who, again, makes them discard cards from the top of their deck. And it's for the restore effect, right, to keep you alive. But if you're already running those, and then you're running double vigilance heroism, where, again, you've got Yodas, you've got Lukes, you've got Obi-Wans, you've got all these ways that you can restore health, stall things out, kill things. You're playing takedowns, the Luke's lightsaber, Jedi lightsaber, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I think you can control the board, win the old-fashioned way, or if worse comes to worse, you could probably draw it out. But the presence of Kanan and Vigilance, it becomes your secondary win con. So I think it's a viable strategy. I don't think we'll see an abundance of it because of all the reasons Doa said, especially in set 1, because right now we have not seen many get cards back from your discard pile.
Mm-hmm.
Later on, as we get more of those effects, then it might be more of a back and forth tug of war sort of thing. But yeah, I think it's a definitely a viable strategy just because of the nature of the game mechanics. And I think you only need a couple of cards, but Kanan and Vigilance are good enough, and they're in the aspects you would want to drag the game out in already.
I'll say this. There's a difference between mill and fatigue, but I think that the end game state is the same, which is your opponent has no cards. I think that if there was enough mill in set 1, it will turn people off of the game, and it's a risky endeavor to incorporate mill as a tier 1 strategy in the early game. Fatigue, however, and the difference between mill and fatigue is basically you're just waiting your opponent out. You're not actively discarding cards. You're just waiting them and grinding them out of their threats. That, I think, is more viable than standard mill, but the outcome is the same. They're going to run out of cards, and you're going to win. Bingo, bango. All right.
There you go.
Are we good?
I'm good.
We'll get to those ideologies at some point. Okay.
There's so many good cards to talk about this week, though. I don't feel like we had half an episode or anything. If anything, we had longer than usual. But we had a lot of good conversation, a lot of good cards.
And once again, we came in with the objective of we're going to cruise through these, right? Yes, perfect, great. No, we didn't. That said,
too much to talk about. Yeah.
That said,
exciting.
It is exciting. We will get to that episode before March, guaranteed. Friends, thank you so much again for contributing to the Bad Feeling Mailbag. You can do so by emailing wamparadiopodcast@gmail.com. You can contact me on Twitter @WatchFlake. You've got @GGDOA and @ThatCharm3R and @Wampa Radio. We want to hear from you. So send us your questions, your comments, your topic suggestions, and all that jam. And again, a final plea. You guys have been exceptional. We have so many 5-star ratings on the podcast platforms and such. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the YouTube channel and all that jam. It really goes miles for us. It costs you nothing, and I promise you that 30 seconds you're going to take to do so really, really, really helps us. So thank you so much again for that. Friends, are we done? I think we're done. Fire it up. It's been a while. We tried to get Doa to do it. He did not. He just gave us well, you gave us your voice, which is fine. It's a good voice.
I don't have a voice changing thing on this computer.
You could have tried to do a robot voice.
Battle droids are a little bit tougher to.
All right. Are you ready, Charmer? Are you locked and loaded? All right, friends, here it is. You've waited for this for 2 weeks. Friends, thank you for listening to Wampa Radio.
May the force be with you.